So this is Chill Step. I really like this music. No, it's not Chill Step. Sorry, what am I talking about? It's this lo-fi hip hop. Chill Step sometimes has some lyrics. Lo-fi hip hop is even more chill than Chill Step, I'd say, and no lyrics whatsoever. I usually listen to this while I'm working. Anyway, this video, ignorance is not bliss. I've been very passionate about the whole ignorance is bliss argument for a while. Though, again, I think every time I start these videos, it's really always very clear in my head, especially when I talk about it with my friends, it's very clear. It's very harder to talk to yourself about it, because then you can't converse, and then people can't challenge it, and you can't update your thinking. It really goes all back to the Your Thoughts video. So it's a real challenge for me, and like with all these videos, I never am able to articulate exactly kind of what I mean, but it's certainly a good exercise. So probably the same with this video, I'm going to miss some points, and maybe there's some connections that I make that don't sound, I don't know, consistent, or there are kind of, I'll just say, well, this is this, and therefore that means, you know, I have to just think all about this and miss. It's a lot of assumptions and conclusions and stuff, but that's what it is. There's always these areas where, you know, you have a point in argument, and it's because you've assumed a certain point that then it then supports your other points that you do make, and sometimes you have to go back into, I don't know, one of the nodes in your argument and really expand on that before you can carry on. But if you do that, you just ended up in endless segues, like we're doing now. So, ignorance is bliss. I mean, to strongman the argument, the ignorance is bliss thing is, well, the idea is obviously, you know, there's a lot of shit that goes on in life and in the world and stuff like that. There's a lot of negative shit, and if you try and take it on and try and understand loads of things, it can just weigh you down. And, you know, one person can't try and take all of it on and still feel a sense of, I don't know, happiness and positivity, and therefore it's just like, well, just why bother with all that stuff, and what difference can you make? So just block it out and just focus on, you know, your life and just having a happy time as much as possible, and doing the things that make you happy, etc., and just, you know, spending time with the people that make you happy. And, you know, that's just should be the main purpose of life. And not knowing this stuff, you know, in essence, not knowing more knowledge doesn't burden you. So that's kind of like the main thinking behind it. And, you know, I mean, simplistically, it kind of sounds like a very good idea, and, you know, there's definitely merit to the argument. And even at the end of this video, even though I do provide my disagreement with it, you know, there are areas where it's like you don't need to know everything, and it is fine just to go along. It's not like there's not like a kind of a one answer fits all, like where you're either ignorant for bliss sake or not. I mean, you know, there are so many different areas in life which that can apply to and can't. But generally, I am wary of this argument, ignorance is bliss, just on like a, you know, if you're thinking generally about everything, because I mean, I definitely encompass that at some point as well, and I know a lot of friends who do, and people who do, and I kind of, you know, you can tell someone who lives a life of ignorance is bliss, who's like, you know, when you start kind of, I don't know, talking about, you know, some serious things, etc., they're like, bad, you know, it's too serious, don't talk about it, don't worry, you know, why think about that, it's just well, pointless. But then you can see, you can really tell which kind of people they are, and it's also a bit sad to see at the same time, as, you know, once those people come across something, they're not prepared for it, and they actually get affected worse than a lot of other people because they are ignorant, they don't have the knowledge, they can't deal with it. But I'll get on to that. So why I disagree, yeah, again, it's talking about those people in specifics, but general kind of theoretically, but just down to you know, who we are as humans as well. I think the classic example is, let's say someone wants to be like ignorant to, I don't know, becoming more wiser with their emotions, you know, like they're just like, oh, I don't need to worry about my, trying to, I don't know, find out who I am or make myself a better person, or try and control my emotions a bit more and really become like an emotionally more mature person and not let my emotions control me. Because for a lot of people that's like a lot of effort, and it also takes a lot of thinking, and it's like, well, what's the point? You don't need to waste your time, just because then, like, if you kind of think about your emotions too much or you try and deal with them, it just becomes too serious. It's like it's a waste of time, because you should just be focusing on doing fun things and stuff. And so I know friends who will just who just like to, their main kind of joys is just I don't know, have a drink and maybe go clubbing and just like have fun times, and that's all they really ever think about. But then the sad situation is when they've lost loved ones, they were not prepared at all, because they never did any kind of real sense of proper self-improvement, or really trying to think about becoming more emotionally stable, and also understanding like things such as pain and what does it mean to be in pain, and how to deal with it, etc. And I know it sounds like very over analytical and stuff like that. I mean, when it sounds overly analytical, but in like the actual process itself is just very natural. It's like I know someone I'm trying to think. This is me trying to articulate my thoughts properly. Let's say, I don't know, you were getting rejected, I don't know, when dating, right? And that's obviously a very painful experience. And rather than kind of really, I don't know, thinking about it or maybe talking about it with people, you're just like, well, I'll just keep it to myself. It is what it is. And rather than like not dealing with it. So you don't really deal with the rejection. You don't really deal with the pain. You don't really see like, okay, here's how I can overcome this kind of thing. Because that's naturally how we either go. Either we just go like, I don't like that pain and I want to move away, or oh, okay, here's a struggle, I want to make myself better, I want to be able to deal with reaction better, I want to be able to deal with the pain better, I want to be better with, I don't know, getting relationships, etc. And that's just a natural thing, and you may argue that, oh, that's over analytical in the way I'm describing it, but that's very natural in terms of the way people think about these things. And then naturally a lot of people are just like, well, I don't like that anymore, so I'm just gonna leave it and just not bother. So yeah, and it's weird how I always find when I'm talking about these things, there's so many interlinking things, like with stuff like pain or friendships or thoughts. Like I always am careful not to go down a rabbit hole or a segue, because it just leads into other topics. But that's the issue with kind of trying to focus on one topic, because usually they are all interlinked, which I'm doing right now because I'm almost discussing. I could even do a video on ideas and how they interlink, etc., and how it's very hard to talk about them in one. But anyway, back to the topic. Trying to stay on topic. I think maybe, one more point quick, okay? Maybe I need to do like, I don't know, one video where it's like unlimited until I, not on a topic, just maybe start with a topic and just ramble until I'm done, and see what I cover, and then you'll see how things kind of interlink, etc., because it all happens with all of our conversations. Anyway, back on topic. So, yeah, and then I've unfortunately seen where, some friends have like lost a loved one, and because they haven't really kind of built themselves up much, or done work on themselves, or really kind of like try to be more, I don't know, be more in tune with their emotions, like discuss their emotions, try and think about their emotions more, hear advice from other people about emotions and stories, and in essence trying to understand like your emotions a bit more, and have that kind of emotional maturity. And because they don't have that kind of knowledge, or I don't know, to put it in a bit more kind of softer terms, like, I don't know, wisdom, like life wisdom, learning the lessons that life gives you rather than just being ignorant to them. They were never prepared for what life had to chuck at them, because life is not this kind of existence where we just can be happy, be happy all the time, and also have all these happy moments. In essence, what I'm saying is that there's gonna be shit that like life will throw you some really harsh curveballs. There are gonna be some really shit moments which are out of your control, and you've got to learn to be able to deal with them. And if you're ignorant, you can't, and you get affected the worst. The best analogy which I always think to is when people talk. I mean, if you don't know Lord of the Rings, you won't know this, but when people talk about Hobbiton in Lord of the Rings, right? So it's like this place which is just like a nice little simplistic place. It's like these kind of dwarf-like people just live in this kind of meadow with lovely houses, and they've got they're all got their own farms, and they're all just like drinking and socializing together and eating all the time and all happy. It's just and that's just all they do, and it's just that is like a blissful existence. They're not concerned about whatever else is going on in the world. They're all happy in their own little area, and they're the epitome of ignorance is bliss, because they are all very, very happy. And so I think when a lot of people go, oh, I'd love just to leave like my current life of all working in the city, blah blah blah, and if there was a thing such as Hobbiton, I'd love just to go live there just for the rest of my life. It'd be great. And like I can see the attraction, because it just looks like such a simplistic life and very happy, and it just gets down to the core things, like hanging out with friends and just having a chill existence. And I completely get the attraction. At one point myself, I was like, yeah, like that would be so awesome if that existed and we could just do that. But then the danger is, in the context of Lord of the Rings and the symbolism of it, is I think when Pippin and Merry are off basically on this adventure, and they're trying to save Middle Earth, because like this evil power is trying to take over, and it will eventually even come to Hobbiton, which is like off in the far corner of the map, and it's like the least endangered place on Middle Earth. So while the rest of the forces of good are fighting against evil, Hobbiton has no idea what's going on, and they're just chilling. And Pippin's like, well, the war's not going well. And Pippin goes, oh well, it's okay, Merry. Let's just go home. We've done the best we can. So let's just go back to our nice kind of almost little utopia dwelling, because there's nothing more we can do. And then obviously Merry's like, well, Pippin, don't you understand? If evil wins, then there's not going to be any Hobbiton. Because they almost have this thing that their utopia, their happy lives will just be always protected, like it'll always be that way, and someone else is just going to do the work for them, and then their life is going to be blissful. And of course, in essence, it's like if Mordor did win, if the evil forces did and they came to Hobbiton, they would be defenseless. The demons would come in and they would tear the place apart, and Hobbiton would have no way of defending itself, and they would be destroyed. And if you compare that to like your mind, if you're having this like existence of kind of constant ignorance and just kind of focusing on the very simplistic things that are right in front of you, like just I just want to be happy all the time and just have time with friends and not really kind of do anything of great meaning when it comes to more complicated issues, because it's just not worth it. And then something like very harsh that comes along, and the demons come, you are not prepared, and you will be consumed. And just like my friends, when it comes to no one's truly prepared for death and stuff like that, but I've seen people who have lost people, but they never really kind of gain the knowledge or the wisdom or grow from it, and then every time that it happens they become more cynical because their minds are ignorant when it comes to life, comes to wisdom, comes to the maturity of the heart and the mind, in terms of being able to the capacity to love, etc. it becomes thwarted because, I don't know, the heart and the mind's not strong enough to deal with the evil. When it comes in, the demons come in, they possess you. You know, it massively transforms your life because you have no sense of true self to defend yourself. Instead, like the hobbits wouldn't have had a chance to defend themselves the same way that your mind has, because it's ignorance and defenseless. And so yes, they had like a good existence of happiness for a long time, but then the demons come in and their world is turned upside down. And you know what I've seen with these friends who are so not ignorant to kind of emotions and a lot of like just life wisdom and I don't know, people's emotions and connections with people. When that person died, or when people continue to die, they became extremely, like, the demons, you could tell the demons really came into them. They became people they thought they could never possibly be. They became, selfish and nihilistic, narcissistic and vengeful and malevolent, because they just weren't prepared. The demons came in and they really wreaked havoc in their mind. And it's like with all things in life, it's not just death, it's everything. Life is unfortunately a lot of suffering at times, and you can't just like sit in the corner in your nice kind of little happy bubble and just hope that you're not gonna be one of the ones affected. Like you are like, that's not the world we live in. The reality we live in is we're gonna have some great times and we're also gonna have some tough times, and you've got to learn to be able to better yourself, and be able to deal with it. Almost kind of like the heroic thing of like trying to make yourself the best person, so when the demon comes, you're able to fend it off, and not just for yourself, but for your family and for your friends as well. You have a great importance when it comes to those things, because if you allow the demons to possess you, then who else do you let the demons possess as well? And the demons I'm using as a symbolism for kind of a lot of negative things, a lot of, which can make you very cynical. Like that's what it is, the kind of comparison, right? When I say demons, I don't actually mean demons. I'm not talking about freaking like demonic forces or something. I'm literally just talking about, negative things, like negative responses to situations. And if you, again, you have a lot of influence on how other people think as well, because everyone thinks, I'm very, very individualistic, and there's obviously a strong sense of individual, but again, this is another video about how much actually people affect who you are, because you can tell by someone by who they're surrounded by, and it really does affect kind of who you are as a person as well. So if you are this ignorance is bliss person, then you're also encouraging other people to do it as well. It's kind of this pathological way that a lot of humans live. And of course, also, if you start to get possessed by these negative thoughts and you start to think in certain ways and act in certain ways, then it's a sense of encouragement to other people as well, and it's almost like you're giving consent to that way of thinking, because of course, if a lot of people see people thinking negatively around, then of course they're going to be like, well, there's nothing wrong with being negative either. Like that's why we have a lot of issues in life, because of the pathological way humans can be, where it's like, well, they're doing it, so I can do it too, and even subconsciously. So it's like a very big importance about being able to defend off this, and that's why it's the main reason why having a strong sense of self and mind and heart, and knowing who you are and gaining greater wisdom and emotional intelligence, it's part of growing. Like, there's like, you can link it into so many different arguments about why it's important to really develop yourself as a person, because if you stagnate or you regress, well then obviously that's a terrible thing. And so it's why ignorance isn't bliss, because those people in your life who you do see living in ignorance is bliss, they have a terrible time when something comes and they can't deal with it. And then not only can they not deal with it and they kind of falter, but then they get possessed by negativity and really bad characteristics, like I mentioned earlier, with like selfishness and narcissism and malevolence. they can really then start to affect other people, you know, and then they can become a bit of a force for I don't know, for bad things, and they become bad people, you know. And that's why you have to be as forthright as you possibly can and really try and develop yourself as much as possible. So not only can you be a good person, and then you're going to hear some of the people say, oh, what does it mean to be a good person, stuff like that. Well, that's another conversation for relativity and stuff like that as well. But you know, if you're gonna talk about that's the whole argument with relativism and nihilism, and I would be careful with that kind of thinking. That's kind of it, but we'll get onto that video another time as well. Jesus, so many videos to do, so many thoughts to get out. But you can have give, I don't know, rather than someone sit there and go, well, what does it mean to be good? Just bear with me, okay? If we don't have to get onto that argument. But yeah, to be a good person, and and then actually you'll also find that people who do live ignorance is bliss life on another point is, even if you were able to live that, and you were in Hobbiton, you got to think how quickly that would get boring, you know, that kind of repetitive pattern. And then you would start to think, well, what's purpose? Because you find that humans without purpose start to become quite depressed quite easily. So not only is it ignorance is bliss is not good in terms of defending against, you know, the harshness that life can offer, but it's also, I don't know, defense against boredom and then the creeps of depression, because, you know, humans do need a sense of purpose, otherwise then they do falter, and that's why it's good to be able to strive for something more rather than just kind of focusing on being an ignorance. You need, you know, humans that have greater knowledge and have a good heart to go with it tend to thrive better, tend to actually be happier than the ones who actually are ignorance of bliss, because then they are the ones who, you know, will be happy when they go and drink with friends and stuff like that and hang out with them and stuff. But when they're kind of alone, or when they're actually in trouble, then they tend to feel crap, actually maybe my friends aren't as close to me as I thought, because I haven't really worked on their bond, because I didn't really put that much thinking into it, and I don't know as well, maybe, you know, they start to question their sense of purpose, and they start to go down the spiraling thinking, which is a lot of problems with people today, negative spiral thoughts, which again you see a lot of people when they have this kind of ignorance is bliss kind of thinking. And the final point I want to make as well, which is good with a lot of these ideas, are quite transcendent. They're transcendent to the individual, to the family, to your friends, to society, government, humanity, and then even the universe. They are quite. So this point of ignorance is bliss in terms of society as well, to prove another point, but in kind of, I don't know, synchronization, is ignorance is bliss was very much practiced during the Soviet Union. A lot of people basically thought, well, you know, this with Stalin, they thought, oh well, the state is changing, but, you know, I don't need to worry about that. It's too much to think about, and it would be too kind of, if I started to think about it, it would make me really depressed and stuff. So, you know, the likelihood is nothing's going to majorly happen, so it will be fine. You know, the society has been well for the last couple of years, 10, 20 years, so why would it go downhill now? So it's just let me just live my life of happiness and just, you know, let things sort themselves out like they always do. And there's a really good book called The Gulag Archipelago, where a guy was a member of the Communist Party, but, you know, just a simple administrator, but, you know, he just was a guy who just liked to go to work every day, believed in communism, but, you know, wasn't particularly passionate about loads of things, just wanted to go to work every day, get his money, go home, chill out with friends and family, and that's it, you know. And he didn't really want to get too wound up in the whole situation that was happening. And then eventually he got arrested and as, you know, for conspiracy against the government, because the government thought that everyone was pretty against them. So he was arrested as a political enemy and sent to the Gulag. And he then spent, you know, pretty much the rest of his, I don't know, middle to late life in prison. And during that time, he was able to do a lot of reflection. So he the only thing he had was the Communist Manifesto, and he talked to a lot of people. He talked to priests and lawyers, doctors. He talked to some soldiers, he talked to some commoners, some former communist members, like loads of different people. And eventually he obviously rejected communism, but one of the biggest breakthroughs that or the conclusions that he had from the entire experience and what he wrote in his book, The Gulag Archipelago, was that the person he blamed, the group he blamed the most, or the party he blamed the most, for him being locked up in prison and for the degradation and hellishness that his society devolved into, was himself. And he said, and you would be really surprised by that, because of course you think, well, you know, surely you would blame the tyrannical government that locked him up, you know, like truly tyrannical and evil government that locked him up when he did nothing wrong. But he said, no, I blame myself because I was too busy worrying about just my living my life, you know, nothing else, and that was the big mistake I made, because I didn't take up responsibility for my society when things started to go wrong. I didn't think about these things, I didn't speak out, I didn't challenge these things, you know, talk about it with other people and stuff like that. We all just went about our business day to day, and then of course, you know, these in essence symbolic demons came along, and society just was not prepared for it, or just didn't care about it, until of course their individual lives were affected and their liberties were taken away, and they were put in jail, and you know, there was mass famine and stuff like that. You know, so the Russian people suffered greatly from that, and that was his main reflection. You know, and you know, saying like, you know, ignorant. It was one of the reflections that ignorance is not bliss. You know, it can actually lead to very, very, nightmarish outcomes. And it's why, you know, we need to have a greater sense of self-consciousness and consciousness about a lot of things. It doesn't mean that you then have to go and start looking at in depth about politics and economics and everything, but it's just to have a bit of a self-awareness. And you know, there are some things where you can be ignorant, but there are others where you need to have, I don't know, be a bit switched on to it. And you know, because when these great issues come, whether that's in your individual life or like great pain, or when society, you know, faces a huge challenge, and they have to deal with it, you know, like only the societies that, I don't know, are really kind of switched on a bit more, rather than just like worried about just being happy and stuff like that, will be able to deal with these like crises. Because yeah, like Stalin's government for the Russian people was a bloody crisis, you know, mass famine, massive lockdown liberties and stuff like that, and it's really trying about like focusing on the issues and really being conscious about, I don't know, the present and the future, and trying to do the right things, rather than just sitting by and just wishing and hoping that everything remains the same. Like, you have to be forthright and you know, try and do the best you can for yourself, for your families, for your communities, and for your societies. Otherwise, the ones that don't, and the ones who are ignorant and just kind of go day by day dawdling, well, they'll end up really suffering when it comes to, I don't know, the massive curveball that life likes to throw at us and humanity. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts, as always, and I think I did okay with articulating that one. Next video, I don't know. I was thinking we could do one on relativism, because everyone goes like, well, what does good mean, what does bad mean, you know, it's all down to perspective, etc, etc. I mean, I used to think that, that's a big challenge, so I might do a video on that one, because I feel like it's a big problem for a lot of young people these days, where they really don't have a sense of purpose, and they always think that what's the meaning of things, because everything is relative and stuff. So it's a real conundrum, and it's possessed a lot of people and made a lot of people very nihilistic, and eroded a lot of like the good things that I think, you know, we as humans value. So maybe something like that, or yeah, I'll see, I'll think. Anyway, that was I've got work again tomorrow, so this is the end of my weekend. Looking forward to getting back to the office. I wasn't in on Friday. I was in on like Thursday, but now this weekend's been a bit slow, so I'm looking forward to getting back to the office tomorrow. And I wish you guys a really good week. Bye bye.